computer. Okay, got it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to ACI 10, where my good friend and teaching partner, Janice Sanders, and I are going through these classes. They are recorded, and we hope that you're enjoying watching them. We're really happy to be teaching, and this class is number 6. I love the topic of this class. It's about taking joy. Actually, Janice already taught some about rejoicing. It was in an earlier class. So this is a very specific rejoicing this time. And we'll get into that here in a minute. But before we really get into the meat of the class, I wanted to orient you as to where we are in this Bodhisattva's guide, the guide to the Bodhisattva's way of life, rather. We're in the end of the 3rd chapter. And the 3rd chapter is about acquiring the wish. And that's what we were working on in the last couple of classes, like how to build up the conditions to make this, make it possible to develop bodhicitta in our hearts. I'm going to review a little bit, but first let's go to a verse of Master Shantideva's from his text. Those of intelligence should in this way then attain the wish for enlightenment with great devotion, and in conclusion lift up their hearts in the following manner to engage in an ever increasing way. That's the topic of this class tonight. It's almost entirely from this verse. Let's review what we've done so far. The very first class was just the history of the text, when it was written. It was written around 700 AD, and that always amazes me that these ideas are still applicable. And students have been using them. Masters have been teaching these ideas, and people have used this to achieve these goals of achieving bodhicitta in their heart and reaching both their worldly goals and their ultimate goals. So this is a path that's been tried and tested, and it's still passed on, and we're passing it on today because it does work. And for myself, I started on this path about 10 years ago, and it's always growing, blooming, showing me more all the time, every day. So it's just continuously unfolding in a very beautiful way. Then we talked about the preliminaries. Oh, the second class was a sales pitch about why bodhicitta is so awesome. We're going to go into that again in a little bit more detail in these latter classes as well. But it just solves all the problems, and it helps us and others in every way. Then there was the topics about how to prepare, and we're still in that topic. So the first things that we talked about were the 3 preliminaries before we started purifying. We want to gather goodness and remove obstacles. So these preliminaries were about gathering goodness. One of the topics was prostrations. And one thing that Janice said that stuck out in my mind is that, if you don't feel the right motivation in your heart to prostrate, it's fine to just not do it. Don't force yourself to do something that feels awkward. It is possible, even for Westerners, that it seems odd to be doing prostrations towards a teacher or towards a image, but it is possible to develop this idea that prostration is showing your own mind that these ideas, and particularly the idea of emptiness and where things come from, is going to change us and change our world. So when we're prostrating, and when I do prostrations, I'm really asking for the perfect body, speech, and mind to be able to make those changes. So I'm trying to develop my body, speech, and mind. And I'm asking for blessings and help, but not self-existently, right? It's not something from outside on its own that can help me. It's coming from my seeds that I have been fortunate to have many wonderful teachers pushing me along the path. So prostrations are one of the preliminaries. Taking refuge, again, in those ideas about emptiness, in the mind, the emptiness of our own minds, the emptiness of our teachers' minds, the Buddhist minds. We all have that same emptiness. In the teachings on emptiness, which is the Dharma jewel. So there's the Buddha jewel, which is the emptiness of the mind, the Dharma jewel, which are the teachings on emptiness, and the Sangha jewel, which are people who have had the realization of the direct experience of emptiness. So those three jewels are, when we're taking refuge, that's what we're thinking about, that there are people who have done this and they can help me. My mind's empty, so I can do it. And there's a wonderful treasure chest of wealth of the ideas being shared from one person to another. And lastly were the offerings. There was many different kinds of offerings. We can offer things that nobody owns. We can offer things in our imagination. We can put out beautiful offerings. And to see ourselves giving to those high objects, those three jewels, and making offerings to all types of different beings is a very powerful karma that's preparing our hearts and minds for bodhicitta. Then we went on to the purification using the 4 powers. And I think you all know those, so I won't review them. But just to be aware of this process of preparing our hearts, we're gathering goodness, and we're purifying, we're destroying our old bad deeds so that they're not blocking us from being able to achieve bodhicitta. And then we went on to 5 different ways of collecting goodness. That was in the last class that Janice taught. And there we had information about rejoicing in our own goodness and the goodness of others, asking our teachers to teach and asking our teachers to stay. You may recognize this list right here, actually, as the same preliminaries that we use for meditation, the 7 ingredients they're called. So you maybe are familiar with that. Maybe you've used them before. So it's interesting that every day we can use this to prepare our minds for meditating. And then the same process we use to prepare our hearts to be able to have actual bodhicitta, even the direct experience of bodhicitta, which is to see emptiness directly and then have that experience afterwards, where we see ourselves going out to every living being in the universe and letting them know that we're coming to help them. So these very powerful 7 steps are the way to do that. There's also dedication. And, the reason that now I have 8 steps, and I think that is because taking refuge in the traditional list isn't one of the 7 ingredients. You do it before you start the 7 ingredients. So we have dedication, dedicating our good efforts. And then there's an additional one here. It's called generosity. And my understanding of generosity or surrender are the words that are used, is that we are just dedicating our lives to this path. We're dedicating our lives to reaching total enlightenment for the benefit of every living being. And when we make that commitment and take vows, maybe even with that commitment, to make that commitment the most important thing that we're doing here, it is a type of giving away of your material things, your body, your mind. Everything becomes in service, in service to this goal. So that's the generosity of giving away everything that you think of as me and mine, with quotes around it. Because if you go looking for me and mine, you're not going to find it anyway. So we can give up that idea and just be in service. So now on to the class about taking joy. After the preliminaries, there's actually an opportunity, or in the text, it starts talking about taking vows. So we'll talk a little bit about vows. If you don't have Bodhisattva vows yet and you'd like to get them, please reach out to us. We can help facilitate you receiving those vows. But it's something that you don't need to rush into taking. It's a big commitment for when you feel ready. So there's a ceremony to take vows. Lately, in more modern times, one ceremony can serve two purposes. You can either take the wish in the form of a prayer, that is, you're wishing to develop the wish. I'm praying that my heart will open enough and my selfishness will let go of its grasp so that I can have the wish, so that I can honestly dedicate myself to reaching my goal, total enlightenment for the benefit of all living beings. So you can just wish to have the wish. That's called the wish as a prayer. Or you can take the ceremony with promising to put into action the action side of bodhicitta, that you're going to start trying. Remember, we talked about this in an earlier class. It's like planning the trip to go to Hawaii, looking into the plane tickets and where you're going to stay, and then actually going and doing it. The second vow ceremony is to do it, to dedicate yourself to doing it. So there's 4 parts of the ceremony, and they repeat some of the things we've already talked about. The first is to purify obstacles. So there's a part of the ceremony that helps to clear out any obstacles that are standing in your way. I mean, this ceremony it's like getting married in a way. It's a big commitment, and we're wanting to join ourselves, our mind stream, with other mind streams that are on this path. We're trying to make a fertile place for the wish to grow. So that's why we are going to purify obstacles at the beginning of the ceremony and collect positive energy. So we've been doing this on the way, building up for months or years before the ceremony. And then in the ceremony itself, it happens again. Same thing. We're getting rid of negative and collecting positive. And then there are the taking of the actual vows. And the vow master will read these vows out to you. You know, I remember when I did this, it was 9 years ago. I was at Diamond Mountain, and it was a really special moment. It was a turning point, you know, and you can make it as special as you want to, but if you really think of it as a turning point, it's more powerful. So taking the vows with the right intention. And then we get to the topic of this class, which is taking joy specifically right after you've taken your vows. It's an instruction about taking vows, is that we want to really be happy about what we did. We're going to do a big rejoiceable coffee meditation about, you know, I did this and all of the great things that it's going to bring to myself and to others. And that, you know, you've changed the direction of your life from just looking out for your own needs and trying to get happiness by taking care of yourself, to knowing that true happiness comes from taking care of others. So when we take this joy at the end of the vow ceremony, it's going to prevent the loss of the wish. So like using a seed analogy, like you've planted the wish during the vow ceremony. Now you need to make sure that it has the right conditions to grow, or it could just wither and it won't stick. So that's why it's so important to purify the obstacles, collect the positive energy, and then this taking joy part. We're wanting to make sure that that seed that's being planted by taking those vows really takes. And when we take joy right after the ceremony, it's going to keep that wish growing strongly. But I was thinking, as I was preparing for this class, since I took my vows quite a long time ago, remembering that I did it and being happy that I did it, it feels like it's stirring up the sort of special energy that happened at that ceremony. So I think we can keep taking joy in the fact that we have bodhisattva vows. You could add it to your list if you do a coffee meditation, if you have a habit of rejoicing every night before bed, which I highly recommend. I try to do it every night. The fact that you have bodhisattva vows or you're thinking about taking bodhisattva vows could go on that list. One other thing I wanted to say about vows is that, it sounds like if you haven't heard much about vows before, in case there's someone listening to this who that's a new idea, I just want to say, it's not a restriction on us. It's not something that holds us down or puts us in a box. What the vows are is an opportunity to make every positive action you do more powerful because you have this vow to do it. So when you help others, it makes that action more powerful. It makes the karma more powerful. So my dear teacher, Lama Sarani, is always talking about how she and her husband, Lama Sumati, once they realized that vows make everything you do more powerful, they couldn't get enough of them. They were, wanting to get all their vows that they could as quickly as possible so that they could gain this energy from their efforts that would result in reaching total enlightenment as quickly as possible. So don't think about vows as something that's restricting. You can't do this, you can't do that, but rather something that gives power to the good things that you are trying to do. So the joy that we take right after our vow ceremony, it cements the commitment into our mind. It like makes it part of us. And it sets the stage for our bodhicitta to increase and flourish after the ceremony. That's a homework question. The two parts of this joy taking are going to be happy for ourselves and happy for others. And we're going to get into that in this class. What is it that we're happy about? And how can we think about that to bring up this feeling of joy? One of the things about joy, when I first started taking these classes, there's quite a bit of talk about joy. And I was not very joyful, I guess, 8 years ago. I didn't feel very joyful sometimes. And I would get annoyed at this idea that I'm supposed to be joyful because I didn't feel joyful. And you can't force yourself to be joyful. So by removing the obstacles, collecting positive energy, we're actually paving the way for joy as well. And then we're going to talk about some of the things that you can think about to help uplift your heart, to help you be more joyful. Here's another verse from Master Shantideva. With this moment, my life has become fruitful. I have truly achieved a human life. Today, I have been born into the family of the Buddhas. Now I have become a child of the Buddhas. So these words are also in the vow ceremony as you are taking your vows. We're going to go into these different 4 parts of this beautiful verse. So there's 4 things that uplift our heart. Let me just make sure. We're going to talk about each of these things on another slide. Just want to make sure I wasn't supposed to talk about them. If any of those aren't explained, we can go back. So here's 4 things that you can think about when you're bringing up that feeling of joy, when you're taking vows, or every day when you're happy that you're on this path. So the first one is that our lives have become fruitful. We have done something meaningful with our life. When I was younger, I often felt that I didn't have any meaning in life. I didn't know what direction to go in. I really didn't know what my purpose was. And I was looking, I had this urge to have some kind of purpose with my life. But my jobs that I took, bringing money in, even one of the most beautiful things of my life, raising my 2 children, didn't feel like I was totally fulfilling my purpose. And that feeling now, I don't have it anymore. I know my purpose. And I think that this is the kind of thing they're talking about here in the text when the life has become fruitful. I made a commitment for the rest of my life, and I wish to keep it in a beautiful way. So I'm not wasting time just chasing after things that don't matter. They're just temporary. They're not going to last. And I've decided to do something with my life that's, and there's a phrase, I'm like, I'm putting it in the bank of other people. I'm putting my efforts into the joy of helping others. And that continues to grow and grow. It's something that never wears out, just like that evergreen tree. It's always producing. I love this one. We have achieved a human life. So the funny thing about this is you probably thought, and I did also, that I already had a human life. We've learned a lot about our leisure and fortune and how fortunate we are that we have a human life. But Master Shantideva is saying that we were so below the potential of what we could do with our life before we decided to have the wish, before we took vows, or before we dedicated ourselves to developing bodhicitta. We were so far below our full potential that it wasn't even really considered a human life. It was like worms grubbing around in the soil or something like that. So when we've decided to do something meaningful with our lives, something that's going to help other people, and it's going to build up the good karma to propel us into a different kind of being who can really help people, then we've achieved our human life. It's kind of like we're in an egg, like we're just not fully hatched. You know, we're being human, we're trying to do different things, but it's that feeling of feeling unfulfilled and feeling like life is meaningless because everything that we care about just falls away and things don't last and just seems so pointless sometimes. And that I think of as the egg phase. And then when we get to this phase of wanting to commit ourselves to bodhicitta, to trying to become a bodhisattva, we're pecking out of that shell, and we're really starting to do something. The third thing that we can think of to help us uplift our hearts, remember we're building up joy here, is that we have been born into the family of Buddhas. So the family of Buddhas, those are enlightened beings, and we are declaring that that is the group that we want to follow, we want to be associated. It's like we're children and they're our parents. So we have our worldly family, and now we also have our spiritual family, the leaders who can help us reach our goals. We can follow their living example. We can follow their historic example. And from hanging around close to them, we will definitely reach our goals. Under this topic, we can also think about the rareness of having been able to do this. If you think about how many 6 billion people there are in the world, how many people have decided that the way to happiness is to help others achieve their goals? It's not a very common idea. It's the opposite of competition, fighting for what we need, and just always feeling like you're like scraping in the dirt to get what you want. I know I had a feeling recently like I'm just over that. I don't need to do that anymore. All my needs can be met through my service to others, and I don't have to scrape around in the dirt to try to get what I want. So that change of heart and change of mind is very rare, and it's very precious. You'll notice if you hang around with people who've been on this path for a long time, that they are happy, they are joyful. And so they've found the way to be happy in this human life. And that's very special. And the last one is that we have become a child of the Buddhas. So this seems very similar to having been born into the family of the Buddhas. In this one, though, think about how now all the enlightened beings in the universe see you. Now they know that you have committed to the path that's going to take you all the way to total enlightenment. So the teaching says that they're looking down on us and they're smiling on us. They're wanting to help us. They're coming around. They're close to us. Now, how does this apply to our lives, especially if we're not very religious and maybe we haven't really convinced ourselves that there's Buddhas out there who can help us, especially if they're not self-existent? Then they have to be coming from our seeds. What if we don't have the seeds yet to see Buddhas helping us? So I think that we can really take joy in the fact that we are trying this new way. We're trying a different way of helping others. And be suspicious that those people that you're helping, the people that you are have your antenna out, you're looking for people who might need your help or ask for your help. You can be suspicious that they are special and that they came to help. They came to help you. So just start being suspicious that there's people around who are helping you. And that will give you a feeling of joy, even when something is difficult, like an irritating person comes along, or you have an irritating person that you see every day at work. So we could take joy that that irritating person at work is really someone who's come to help us. Maybe they look like they need help from us, and we can serve them because we have that ability now. We've made that determination that that's what our purpose is to help others. We don't want to be annoying, though, so we have to be careful. Don't help people who don't want help. So we can be happy that now we can help others. It's our mission. It's our new mission in life. And when we get up in the morning, we can think about, who can I help today? I've been thinking about work-life balance too. I know it's kind of a big topic. I know amongst my children, they really, they look for jobs that have good PTO, paid time off. I don't think we even had that when I was a youngster. That's a new thing. So it's great that they have that. And then for myself, I work from home and I work for myself on several different projects. And I kind of feel like I'm always working. I might be working at any time of day. I was working late last night. Sometimes I'm working very early in the morning. I don't have set hours. Like now I'm working, now I'm not working. And sometimes it feels like it's hard to recharge. So I've been mulling that over, and actually Janice and I were talking about that. When is our personal time? When is our work time? And I've been thinking, and I'm hoping that I can develop this new attitude where I'm always of service, 100% of the time. I'm always being of service for free and for fun. There is no, now I'm on, now I'm off. I mean, a bodhisattva actually doesn't have time off from being a bodhisattva. They're always a bodhisattva, even when we're sleeping. But that doesn't mean that we're getting depleted, because part of being a bodhisattva, as we're going to see later on, is taking care of ourselves. So we can help others, but that doesn't mean we're not taking good care of ourselves. Okay, so that's another thing we can be happy about. We're happy that we're helping others, and we're happy we're helping ourselves. We can be happy that we have a job that we love and we would do even if we didn't get paid, which is likely you won't get paid for being a bodhisattva. And then finally, there's a sobering idea that you don't want to embarrass your new family. So we uplifted our hearts, and we're going to do some more uplifting in this class. But let's just for a moment think, like if you married into a new family and you have a new set of parents, your spouse's parents, you don't want to disappoint them. You don't want to disappoint your new family. So not embarrassing your new family means that we're going to try hard to keep our morality, keep living an ethical way of life and not harming others. So we might embarrass our family if we went out and purposefully hurt somebody. But on the other hand, the Buddhas know that we're trying. So the main thing is to try. You won't be perfect right away in whatever you do to try to help others. But just keep in mind that, you know, those Buddhas, they're all looking down on us once we've taken our vows, and we don't want them to be like, oh no, look at the new kid. What are they doing? So we're going to go over the ways that we can help others now that we are bodhisattvas. So there's just a little disclaimer there, is that once you've taken vows, you can call yourself a bodhisattva, and we'll all say we're bodhisattvas, but we're not really bodhisattvas until we've seen emptiness directly with bodhicitta in our heart. So we're wannabe bodhisattvas, but we can still say we're bodhisattvas. So these are 5 ways that the wish can remove the suffering of living beings. So these are some things we can be really happy about. By being a bodhisattva, we can destroy the Lord of Death. The Lord of Death is the monster that holds the wheel of life in their clutches. If you've ever seen the painting of the wheel of life, that the wheel is samsara, the birth, aging, sickness, birth, sickness, aging, death, being forced by your past deeds to go around and around in that circle. So we're instructed to not think of the Lord of Death as some scary monster outside of ourselves, though. The Lord of Death is the ticking time bomb inside of us all. The expiration date, as Janice called it, is that as soon as we're conceived in the womb, we have an expiration date. And it's like gnawing. Our life is being gnawed away slowly throughout our entire life until we succumb to death. So how could we destroy the Lord of Death? Well, if we become totally enlightened, then we won't have death anymore. We won't be on the wheel. We're outside samsara. We're no longer forced to take a rebirth. And so at that point, we've broken the wheel, we've broken death. But how does that remove the suffering of living beings? Because if we can do it ourselves, then we're able to share with others how we did it. And we can help others destroy the Lord of Death too. And these are all going to be the same. We destroy material and spiritual poverty through the perfection of giving. First, we have to destroy it for ourselves. And then once we've done that, we can teach others how to do it. The only way Buddhas can help is by teaching. And that's why it doesn't make any sense to delay ending all our mental afflictions, or delay destroying our material and spiritual poverty as we try to help others, delaying our own realizations, because we have to realize these things ourselves to be able to teach others. We destroy the mental afflictions and physical illness. So that's mental and physical problems. Mental afflictions. I think a better word that Geshe Michael uses now is negative emotions. So if you're having trouble thinking about what a mental affliction is, and I think there's going to be a definition for us later, that it's just our negative emotions, the things that cause us pain and cause us to hurt others. We can destroy the suffering of others in general. And we can destroy the suffering of the 3 lower realms. The 3 lower realms are the hell realms, the hungry ghost realms, and the animal realms. So the only one of those three that we can, or that I can directly see, are the animals. I don't know who's watching this video. You may be able to see some other realms, but most of us can only see the animal realm. Yet we see a lot of suffering, even that's the highest of the lower three realms. And we can see a lot of suffering in that realm. So we want to destroy anyone ever taking, any being taking a birth in those lower three realms. We can do that when we stop our own chances of taking a lower rebirth, then we can tell others how we did it. When you have dedicated yourself to developing bodhicitta, you've actually already closed the door to the lower realms, they say. Just that intention of wanting to help others be free of suffering. That strong intention protects you from taking a lower rebirth. For all of these five, how do we do these things? We do it by learning, contemplating, meditating, and applying what we learn to reach all of these goals ourselves. Then we can share with others how we did it and show them the way, just like others are right now showing us the way. I'm gonna take a drink, excuse me. We have now another verse from Master Shantideva. The wish is a great tree which refreshes all those beings who have tired themselves wandering along the road of cyclic existence. These verses are so beautiful, so I just tried to pick a couple. I hope that you do the readings, because the readings have more verses, and the beautiful explanation in the commentary is very rich. I'll read this one more time. The wish is a great tree which refreshes all those beings who have tired themselves wandering along the road of cyclic existence. So this verse really speaks to that idea that we are able to stop the suffering of others and prevent them from taking rebirths in the lower realms from our wish. Our bodhicitta is the great tree. So how can the wish remove suffering? I think I already covered this. Now that we have learned these things and we're trying to develop the wish, and we've taken vows, maybe, we can reach total enlightenment, which qualifies you to truly help others reach their own perfection. Until we are totally enlightened, we can't know exactly how to help each person. One of the cool things about becoming a Buddha is that you might have heard, I think we already mentioned in this series of classes, that a Buddha can see all things in all three times, past, present, and future. What this really means, because the question is, oh, can they see how many grains of sand are at the bottom of the Pacific Ocean? Yes, they can, but that's not what they're focusing on. They're focusing on the workings of karma, cause and effect. They perfectly see the emptiness of everything, every mind, every atom, every speck of anything in the universe. They see its emptiness, and their minds have this ability to be Mrs. or Mr. Know-it-all. So they understand how all of these things are interacting with each other. So there's Buddhas right now who know how the words I'm speaking, the effort that Janice and I put into preparing this class, they know exactly how it's going to affect our future. And that's how a totally enlightened being can help, is they know what next thing you can take up to help you along your path. How will they communicate that to those of us who would like to hear? You know, they say that you should ask for help. And for me, I don't have Buddhas just showing up, looking like Shakyamuni Buddha in the, in the office right now. But if I listen carefully, I can get instructions from the people around me, even the trees whispering the Dharma, they say. So it's again that idea of everything is conspiring to help you. And that's how we can, as students, listen for the teachings of the Buddha as they try to steer us if we're not too stubborn to hear. So there's two types of obstacles that the wish can destroy. The first is our negative emotions. And the second one are our obstacles to total knowledge. That's what I was just talking about, that the Buddhas have gotten rid of those last obstacles to total knowledge. And that's why they can understand every intricate working of karma, how everything is cause and effect, how everything connects. So the wish helps to remove those final obstacles to Buddhahood. But first, we're going to remove the negative emotions in our own minds. And that's called nirvana, the total cessations of mental afflictions in their entirety is the definition of nirvana. I think something like that. So the obstacles to knowledge and the mental affliction obstacles cause all the sickness, suffering, and death that there is in our world. So when we stop the mental afflictions or the negative emotions, that is reaching nirvana. When you stop the negative emotions, you stop suffering for yourself. That happens on the 8th bhumi level. The bodhisattvas have 8 levels that they go through, from seeing emptiness directly and getting onto the 1st bhumi, and then through the path of habituation. There's 8 different levels that, if you're on the Mahayana path, take you to total Buddhahood. So it's the 8th bhumi where you reach nirvana. You've ended your mental afflictions, and you've also ended grasping to things as self-existent. So that means you know that things aren't self-existent, but it takes the 9th bhumi to stop seeing things as seeming like they're coming from you. So there's what they call the innate tendency to see things as self-existent. So my computer will still appear to be unrelated to my projections until the 9th and 10th, when those final obstacles to total knowledge are destroyed. They call those final obstacles like shadows. They're just little wisps of old karmic negative karmas that are blocking from getting nirvana, where we've eliminated all our negative mental afflictions, to making that jump to having that perfect mind and body of a Buddha that knows everything and can emanate to help everybody everywhere. So these are, remember, ideas that are going to help us take joy. Like, wow, we can destroy these 2 types of obstacles by developing the wish. Just by listening to this class, by learning and applying what we learn, and taking vows, and dedicating ourselves every day to doing this, we will destroy these 2 types of obstacles. So what does it mean to take the essence of this body and mind? We've been given this amazing opportunity, something to be so grateful for. Just the perfect birth is a human birth. They say we have the right mixture of pleasant things and painful things, just enough painful things to keep us going, to keep us wanting to perfect ourselves and our world, but enough pleasure and comfort that we're not just overcome by suffering. Like in the hell realms, there's too much pain, and there's so much pain that the mind isn't clear. But here we have this beautiful body and mind, which we can use to serve others. So how do we take the essence of this wonderful gift that we have? We're going to take steps to gather goodness and purify obstacles, which we learned in the beginning, in the first few classes, right? So gathering goodness by prostrating, taking refuge, making offerings, purifying obstacles using the 4 powers, and gaining the wish through our intention of wanting to help others, to want to have this wish, to be sick and tired of selfishness and only serving ourselves, and keep learning, keep studying. When we develop ultimate compassion, our job is to find out what really makes people get sick and die. So every day, as a want to be bodhisattva, that's the highest thing we can be thinking about. It's not just making sure our dogs are fed, or taking care of our bills, taking care of our children. And these are all different forms of giving and caring and compassion. Caring for someone who's living on the streets. But it's to take some time every day to think about these ultimate enemies, the Lord of Death. This problem of getting sick and dying. It's like the big problem that humans have. So when our compassion is high enough, that's what we're focused on. Finding out why, what's the karma for that, and then stopping those things. That's stopping to create the causes for sickness and death. I don't know, I think that's a pretty big leap for me, I know it is, to even know that it's possible. We see people dying around us, and we even see the teachers, our high teachers, getting sick and dying. And there's a part of me that still has trouble believing that it's something that we could do, possibly. And I've never seen it. But just because you haven't seen something doesn't mean that it's not possible. What Geshe Michael has taught me, and Lama Sarani has taught me, is that we don't know what other beings are seeing from their side. So even if I see someone looking like they're getting sick, that doesn't mean they're experiencing themselves as being in pain of having sickness and death. So that's something for me to chew on, and maybe for you to chew on as well, is, what does that mean to stop sickness and death? And we're going to be talking about that more in a later class. But for now, let's just think about, is it possible that somebody, a very high teacher that we might admire and we see practicing this path so beautifully, if we see them getting sick and even dying, does that mean that that's what happened? Or is it because our seeds are forcing us to see that suffering? It appears to be suffering to us, but it doesn't mean that it's suffering from their side. They might not be seeing that. So that is this class. And I'm going to be inviting Janice to teach, but we're going to stop the recording and restart it. And Janice is going to be teaching going on to the next chapter, which is about carefulness, I believe is the topic. So thank you so much. And Janice, thank you for recording. And you can stop now, and we'll see you all in a minute.